You probably tried one of those AI assistants that can write an email, suggest a code snippet, or organize your calendar, and it felt clever but a little limited. Now imagine if that AI could actually take the next step on its own, make a decision, trigger an action, or follow through on a task without you hovering. That's what people are calling Agentic AI in 2026. And it's a technology everyone's excited about but also struggling with. Today I want to pull back the curtain and show you where these systems are working, where they're falling short, and why what's coming next might surprise you. When people talk about AI agents right now, the conversation usually starts in a very confident place, almost like we already crossed some invisible line, and suddenly software can just think, plan, and act on our behalf without friction. I've seen the clips, I've watched the demos, and I've heard the claims that these systems can manage work, make decisions, and handle entire workflows end to end. And on the surface, it sounds compelling, because who wouldn't want technology that takes work off their plate instead of adding more of it? But the more I looked into what companies are actually deploying today, the more I noticed a growing gap between what's being promised and what's actually being used once the cameras are off. That gap is where the story sits in between, because it tells us a lot about where Agentic AI stands right now, and more importantly, where it doesn't. Agentic AI, at least as it's being marketed, is supposed to be AI that doesn't wait for instructions at every step, but instead understands goals, makes plans, and takes action across systems. In simple terms, it's AI that does things, not just AI that answers questions. And that distinction matters, because the moment software starts acting instead of responding, the consequences of mistakes grow very fast and become obtrusive. Over the past year, I've spoken with developers, product teams, and people inside large organizations who are experimenting with these tools, and the pattern is surprisingly consistent. There's excitement at first, followed by careful testing, and then a noticeable pullback when these systems meet the complexity of everyday operations. Not because the technology is useless, but because it behaves very differently in controlled demos than it does inside live environments filled with messy data, legacy systems, edge cases, and human expectations. One of the most common examples comes from software development itself. You've probably seen agents that can generate entire applications from a prompt, stitching together files, writing functions, and even running tests. When this works in a demo, it feels like a glimpse of the future. But in practice, most teams are using these tools in a far more constrained way. They let the AI suggest code, summarize repositories, or flag potential issues. But the moment something touches production systems, humans step back in. Every change gets reviewed. Every output gets checked. And that's not hesitation. That's survival. Because a single flawed decision in a live system can cascade into outages, security issues, or compliance problems. The same thing shows up in business workflows. AI agents can draft emails, organize information, and propose actions based on context. But when it comes to sending messages to customers, approving transactions, or modifying internal records, organizations tend to slow things down. The agent might prepare the work, but someone still signs off. That handoff isn't a temporary inconvenience. It's a deliberate design choice rooted in accountability. When something goes wrong, someone needs to understand why it happened. And right now, most agentic systems struggle to explain themselves in ways that satisfy legal, operational, and ethical requirements. What's interesting is that this pullback isn't happening because companies don't believe in AI. It's happening because they do. They see how powerful these systems can be, and they also see how brittle they become when asked to operate without boundaries. AI can reason impressively in narrow contexts, but once it has to juggle incomplete information, conflicting objectives, and unpredictable human behavior, things get complicated fast. This is where the conversation shifts from ambition to engineering. It turns out that the hardest part of deploying agentic AI isn't the model itself. It's everything around it: data quality, system integration, access controls, monitoring, and failure handling all become critical the moment an agent is allowed to act. If the data is outdated, the agent makes poor decisions. If systems don't talk to each other cleanly, actions fail halfway through. If something breaks, teams need visibility into what happened and why. Without that infrastructure, autonomy becomes a liability instead of an advantage. Developers feel this tension more than anyone. On one hand, they're being asked to build systems that feel intelligent and proactive. On the other, They're responsible for making sure those systems don't create chaos. That's why so many teams are designing agents with tight scopes, clear constraints, and explicit escalation paths. The agent can gather information, evaluate options, and suggest a course of action, but hands control back to a human when uncertainty rises. This isn't a lack of confidence. It's a recognition that intelligence without context can be dangerous. From an investment perspective, the tone has shifted as well. Early excitement centered on bold claims about replacing entire roles or automating complex decisions overnight. Now, the focus is on sustainability and outcomes. Investors want to know whether these systems reduce costs, improve accuracy, or shorten cycles in measurable ways. They care less about how autonomous an agent sounds and more about how reliably it performs under pressure. That's why funding is flowing toward companies building the underlying layers that make agentic systems manageable, observable, and safe to operate at scale. Infrastructure plays a major role here. Running autonomous agents across multiple workflows requires compute resources, low latency access to data, and predictable performance. Many organizations are discovering that fully cloud-based approaches introduce bottlenecks, especially when agents need to interact with sensitive or time-critical systems. As a result, hybrid architectures are gaining traction, combining centralized models with localized processing and tighter control over execution. This approach doesn't grab headlines, but it solves problems that matter. What we're seeing, then, isn't a collapse of the agentic AI idea, but a correction. Companies are learning where autonomy adds value and where it creates unnecessary risk. They're trimming back grand ambitions and replacing them with practical implementations that fit into existing workflows. Agents aren't being asked to run entire businesses. They're being asked to make people better at their jobs by handling coordination, synthesis, and routine decision support. This shift also changes how we should think about progress. The success of agentic AI in the near term won't be measured by how human it appears or how many tasks it claims to automate. It will be measured by how well it integrates, how often it helps without causing friction, and how smoothly it works alongside human judgment. The most effective systems are almost invisible. They reduce cognitive load, surface insights at the right moment, and stay out of the way when uncertainty is high. Looking ahead, the next phase of this story will be less about spectacle and more about discipline. The teams that succeed will be the ones who treat agentic AI as a system design challenge, not a magic upgrade. They'll invest in monitoring, governance, and feedback loops. They'll design agents that understand when to act and when to pause. And over time, those agents will earn more responsibility. Not because they were marketed as autonomous, but because they proved they could be trusted. That's why I find this moment so interesting. We're past the stage where it's enough to show that something can work in isolation. Now the question is whether it can hold up in the messy, interconnected environments where most work actually happens. The answers to that question will shape how AI evolves over the next few years, and they'll determine which tools fade away and which ones become part of how things get done. So while the headlines focus on bold promises and dramatic demos, the deeper story is unfolding elsewhere inside engineering teams, operations groups, and decision rooms where people are figuring out how much autonomy makes sense and where it should stop. That process isn't flashy, but it's where progress happens. And if you're paying attention now, you're watching the foundations being laid for the next generation of AI systems, ones that don't just act, but act responsibly, consistently, and in ways that people can actually rely on. So that's where we are with agentic AI. The flashy promises are fun to watch, but the real story is about how these systems are being shaped to actually work with people, handle complex problems, and earn trust over time. The exciting part is that we're just getting started. What's coming next will be about smarter, safer, and more helpful AI that changes how we work one thoughtful step at a time. Keep an eye on this space, because the agents that succeed are going to reshape the way we get things done, and I can't wait to see how far they go.